So deforestation is the large scale of, or larger or small scale of cutting of trees. So when we think of deforestation, we probably think of this image, or we think of the Amazon or Indonesia, where a lot of trees are being cut down for several reasons. Most of the time is because we want to take advantage of the resources in there. But trees actually are very important for the entire carbon cycle and climate change. Trees, plants, and other things in the oceans called phytoplankton, they store carbon with a mechanism that we know as photosynthesis. So if we look here down, we'll see this little formula that basically says that plants need carbon that they take from the atmosphere. They also use water, and they use light and other nutrients that they can find in the soil. And with that, they grow. And as a result, they produce oxygen and sugar, which then other things in the ecosystem use. So because they use carbon and they take it from the atmosphere, that means that as trees and plants grow, they store this carbon in their body. And when you cut the trees down, this carbon is released into the atmosphere. And this process is known as carbon sequestration. I don't know if you've heard of that word. So basically, 30% of the planet are forests, and that means there's a lot of trees and a lot of carbon that they take up. So when we start cutting trees down, this is a lot of carbon that is being released into the atmosphere. And two things happen when we get rid of the forest. One of them would be, as I just said, carbon gets released from the body, the carbon that they were storing, but also trees with photosynthesis that we were saying that they take a lot of carbon. So with less trees on the earth, it's less carbon they can take up, and as a result, more carbon goes into the atmosphere. So I have a graph here that shows kind of like the balance of the system in the planet. So on top we've got emissions. Anything above the line of the zero will be an emission, carbon that goes into the atmosphere. And that can be because of, I'm not sure if the projector is, can you see it? Is it blurry?
I can see it good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so it's fossil fuels and then land use change. Anything that's below will be things in the ecosystem that take that carbon. So we've got ocean, land, and atmosphere. Ocean is 24%. Land 30%, so that'll be all the trees and the forests that take up all that carbon. And then at the bottom we've got the atmosphere, so anything that's not taken up but oceans and land goes into the atmosphere. So there has to be a balance always in the system, and if we've got more emissions from fossil fuels, this has to go somewhere. So if we remove forest cover on the planet, potentially all of this carbon that we don't have going here will go to the atmosphere. And that is why there've been thoughts about afforestation and reforestation. I don't know if you've heard much about it, but essentially means replanting trees. So replanting trees is a good measure to battle climate change and limit carbon emissions, just because growing trees means taking more carbon from the atmosphere.
And it means more for Queenstown because we need to cut down the wood to keep us warm.
That's also an approach. Yeah, I mean, afforestation or reforestation is it's good for large-scale projects.
So things in the forestry.
So things like this we can probably answer in the Q&A at the end. Yeah, but that's pretty much all I have to say.